Oh man, I didn't see that one coming. The apocalypse is so full of surprises. And last week, information came across my desk in regards to something that I've wanted to know for the last 30 years plus. It has to do with an event that happened in 1917, but the uh, information of that event was never disclosed. And I've been wondering what that was. I was expecting all kinds of radical things. And even in the book Malachi Martin wrote, Keys of This Blood, where it talks about who is going to form the first world government in Earth's history between the Vatican, communism, and also the capitalist West. Well, when you know that communism was started by the papacy, you'll understand that that's going to be taken, down as far as not being the world's power. And the capitalist West is also run by major Vatican insiders. What we have here basically is an event that happened. And in Malachi Martin's book, he mentioned that event as well, and he didn't say what it was. So I've been wondering what in the world for the last 33, 4 years as to what this was. And the Vatican takes it very seriously, so I thought better to find out what this is. I thought maybe it might be, like a alien encounter where Jesus steps out of a UFO or something like that. And by the way, that could happen. So if there's a second coming, where Jesus steps on the earth, it's a false reality, because when Jesus comes, the saved meet him up in the air, and he never steps his foot on the earth. But anyhow, something like that, or maybe there's going to be some kind of meteor that's going to hit the earth or something cataclysmic, right? But anyhow, the information has to do with this whole Russia-Ukrainian war. So let's kind of get into it. I'll share a clip with you here, and they'll talk about it.
And so on July 13, 1917, the Virgin Mary, listen to this, everybody. The Virgin Mary, they believe, is said to have appeared to a group of shepherds in Fatima, Portugal, to whom she gave 3 secrets to be revealed to the world. And so the trio, a group of child shepherds, claimed to have been visited 6 times by the Virgin Mary. The children describe 3 visions they say were given to them. One of hell, one of the end to World War I, and a final vision of an unnamed pope being killed by gunfire, as well as angels sprinkling blood of Christian martyrs on the deceased. However, a clause of the second vision has remained under scrutiny, a request to consecrate Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. The apparition allegedly told the children that a consecration of Russia would stop the nation's errors throughout the world, promoting wars and persecution of the church. So if the consecration did not happen, the apparition claimed, quote, the good will be martyred, the Holy Father will have much to suffer, various nations will be destroyed. Wow, that's apocalyptic.
Well, okay, so here you have a situation, that happened, 1917, I guess that's 105 years ago, which is kind of an interesting number because, in numerology, if you were to go 1 + 0 + 5, that's a 6. So it's interesting timing. But, what does this really have to do with anything nowadays? It's just something that's so obscure and off in the weeds, but it's not so far off in the weeds because the day that I'm recording this, actually, the Pope is going to be praying for the conversion of Russia, along with all the bishops of the Catholic Church. Like this is, turned out to be a big deal here. And it's quite interesting. The conversion would be to the Catholic faith, obviously. I mean, that's where they're going with all of this. And it's funny thing is, like when you listen to Putin, he sounds more Christian than all the other world leaders, And even if Russia was to be converted to the Catholic faith, it doesn't really matter what the people are doing. It's what the leaders are doing too, right? These are the kind of events that are going to be happening in the future where we're going to have to, navigate around and understand what's going on. And as we go further on into this apocalyptic issue, it's going to be more and more religious. So I tell people the most important prep that you can do is to make sure that you're right with God. Ask for that born-again experience of John chapter 3, and ask for the Holy Spirit to speak to you as in John 14, and to walk in the light that you have, right? So that you can navigate what's going on. One of the key things to note is that if Russia is not converted, then there's going to be entire nations obliterated, destroyed. And that's very serious. And if you listen to how the Pope is talking, he's talking exactly like the media mainstream narrative, talking about how this is going to be apocalyptic unless, something is done, right? And it's always interesting when things happen. There's other wars going on in the world that people don't even know about, like Saudi Arabia. I think it's going and bombing. Is it Yemen? I'm not too sure. But there's other wars in Africa and everything else. No one hears about that kind of stuff. But, when it came down to the death of the flu season, the end of COVID season, then, and all the numbers are coming down, then all of a sudden a new narrative, and it's all the MSN jumping on board with all of this stuff. So when you see these things happening, you're being marched along in their propaganda machine. And here they're talking about nuclear war and getting everyone afraid of that, right? It's going to come to the time as you go further down the line here that men's hearts are going to fail them for fear of what's coming down on the earth. And so the fear campaign will continue on. Now, when things like this happen, and are being brought forth, this Marian apparition and whatnot, this is actually going on quite a bit in the world. And it's a big deal for Catholics to pray the rosary and to pray to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, right? And so how can we make sure that we're not duped by this stuff, right? So one of the things is to know what the Bible has to say. And what I recommend that people do is get a King James version of the Bible on their phone or their device that they use, and with a search function. So you could do the search for death, what happens when you die. And then when apparitions of Mary come up, then you can kind of contrast that to the Bible. As for instance, in Psalms 115:17, it says, "The dead praise not the Lord, neither any that go down into silence." Or in Psalms 146:4, "His breath goeth forth, he returneth to his earth. In that day his thoughts perish." Okay. This is Job 14:12. "So man lieth down and riseth not, till the heavens be no more, they that shall not awake nor be raised out of their sleep." And Jesus talks about the death of Lazarus as being asleep, right? So the fact that you're having Mary up in heaven, giving warnings to the world is a big sign that something else is going on, So, but here we are, and when you look at it, it's a threat of the entire planet being obliterated with nuclear war. But many will say, okay, that's just three children, making, this stuff up, 105 years ago, right? But it became a big deal as they were doing this. The locals were noticing it, and then finally it came to a specific day that 70,000 people were there watching these girls, pray to Mary and get their insights. And just have a listen to what happened that day and tell me if you don't think that's significant.
Come noontime, when it was supposed to happen, it's raining cats and dogs. Already people are calling out what a sham this is. I'm sure the writers and the photographers are going nuts with, what a story this is going to be. It's really juicy. Here are these idiots standing out here in mud everywhere, because it's in the middle of a field, and it's just disgusting. And then the little kids kneel down in the middle of this mud and disgust, and Lucy, one of the three kids, yells, "Look at the sun." The sun begins to spin, gyrate on its axis, and then throw off various colors. And then it starts to dance in the sky, and then it comes hurtling toward the earth. So much so that people, now there's 70,000 people there, and there's reporters from everywhere photographing this. And you can see in the photos the rain, people all standing there in umbrellas, and it was horrible, like a mud field. And then what happens is the sun hurtles toward the earth. They think they're all going to die. People start kneeling down in the mud, screaming out their sins, saying, "Repent, I repent, I repent," because they honestly think it's the end of the world. And then all of a sudden, just as fast as it started, and this, by the way, it only takes less than a minute, everything goes back to normal. The sun goes back to where it belongs. Everything is back to normal, except one thing is weird. everything is dry, like there was no rain. So it's a stupendous miracle witnessed by 70,000 people and photographed. And I would encourage your readers, your listeners, to go and check it out. Check out the newspaper articles. They're all over the net because it was so stupendous. But this was heaven's warning in 1917 about what was to come.
So here you have an event, where supposedly 70,000 people watched this and they saw the sun spinning on its axis, emitting other kinds of colors, and then finally starts to look like it's going to, come and hit the earth or something like that. And, did that really happen in life? No, I don't think it did, right? Obviously. But do those people, I think they might have saw that. It might have been, some kind of a manifestation there that made it so that they saw that. But anyhow, regardless, it's still very significant. It was a spectacular event, kind of validating what was going on with these three girls and Mary and all that kind of stuff. So what does that, where does that leave us now? Here we are in a situation where we got this war going on. It kind of looks like Russia's sort of failing at it a little bit by the, stuff that we get sent our way. But definitely threats have been made about using nukes. And this whole issue of praying for Russia's conversion. Now, this is kind of interesting because ultimately where this whole end time apocalyptic thing is going is for the conversion of the world to this system, to papacy, which actually is the first beast of Revelation 13, the one that received the deadly wound and was healed. It received the deadly wound in 1798 when Napoleon's general Berthier took the Pope captive, and it seemed like the Catholic Church was dead. But then in the 1920s, Mussolini went ahead and carved out a piece of Rome for the papacy to exist, and now they become a political religious power in the world. And so this deadly wound is being healed, right? And when you look at what's going on and how the papacy is basically leading in everything to do with world order, you'll see where it's all going. So all of this is leading us to a point where everyone is going to be so fearful for the things that are coming on the earth that they're going to be willing to go along with what's being presented. For instance, with this Marian apparition type stuff, or other events that are going to be coming up. Okay, so what does this really mean for Russia now? It could be that, the Pope prays and then it just kind of all dies away and nothing happens out of it. It could be that things get a lot worse too, right? I mean, when you look at the biodiversity map of, let's say, the United States that came out of 1992 Rio de Janeiro summit for Agenda 21, you'll see that most of the United States is off limits. So I was thinking way back then, I think, how is that even possible? How are they going to get major cities not to be there anymore? Well, could it be that we're going to see a nuclear exchange? I mean, things are going to have to get really intense for people to go along with what they want to roll out with their Agenda 2030, and that you'll own nothing and be happy. You might just be happy just to be alive. Maybe that's the whole thing, right? And so it's not sure in my mind as to how it's going to play out. I just find it fascinating that all of a sudden they're resurrecting this 1917 thing, and it's a big deal for the papacy, right? And I think that we'll probably see it in the news today as to that was going on. So I'll have to watch for that. Myself, I'm not really following what's going on with the Russia-Ukrainian war, just maybe a few videos here or there of independence. When I see the MSN, videos or shows talking about what's going on, the news and whatnot, I just look at the headline and I just want to throw up, because so much spin on it. It's just, I can't take it. So I really haven't been following it that much. But if cities start to get nuked and things like that happen, it'll get my attention. But there's other things going on that we have to deal with too, because while all eyes are on this war thing, there's all kinds of bills and laws being passed going on into Canada and other countries. And even actually, it's very interesting if you go and look at what's going on in Ukraine. They're rolling out that new software where basically it's a social credit system all rolled into one. And so a lot of things are being done as everyone's distracted on this thing. The other thing that's a really big issue coming up for us is this whole digital ID. It's going to be rolled out in each province. And, what do we do with that? I guess obviously try not to jump in and try and resist it as long as you can. For many, it'll be the line in the sand, just like the vax as well. So we'll have to go and see what's going on with that. I think that they'll want to have the ID in place before they do the Great Reset financially to get everyone into their system as much as possible. So the great financial collapse, it could happen this year, but I don't know. It looks like it could. So you still want to continue on to do your whatever you can to try and protect yourself. But again, the most important preparation is spiritually, because that way you'll be able to have a guide and navigate through this, right? So there you go. I mean, interesting times. The weirdest things are going to happen. And this one here for me was a real, curveball and quite interesting. So I finally found out what those little girls saw all those years ago. All right, well, take care.